Welcome back, boys and girls, and this is our last session of SOL review. So today we're going to be looking at United States economics. So here we go. Our main objectives for today are looking at these points. So we're looking to see how the United States economy is primarily a free market, but is characterized as a mixed economy. When both buyers and sellers respond to changes, the prices may change, buyers may change the quantity they're willing to buy, and sellers change the quantity they're willing to and able to bring to market. So a lot of this would depend on the variables of supply and demand. There's also three basic ways that businesses organize to earn profits. So these are separate from economic models, but they are different ways that they organize, like proprietorship, partnership, and corporation. The next one here is resources, goods and services, and money flow continuously among households, businesses, and markets in the United States economy. Basically, people that spend money, obviously the money goes to a business, and then those businesses would then turn around and give money to people through their work and earning a wage. The second last point here is private financial institutions like banks help facilitate the exchange of money between savers and borrowers, like mortgages for homes, loans for cars, personal loans, as well as a place to keep your money and a place to have your money come in and to pay bills. The last point here is Virginia and the United States both pursue international trade in order to increase wealth. So Virginia undergoes international trade because it's a part of the Union, so they would facilitate international trade through a couple of different ports of Virginia. So here we go. First point here is the United States is primarily a free market, but is characterized as a mixed economy. So the United States has a characteristics of free market, but it's mixed because for the most part, a lot of individuals and businesses are able to make decisions out there in the market, but there are government controls. So there's different standards that businesses have to comply with and by. They have to pay taxes. They have to pay a minimum wage. They're required to give health insurance if they're over a certain amount of employees. So you're going to have a number of different variables that businesses will have to do. Next point here, government is going to intervene in a market economy when the perceived benefits of a government policy outweigh the anticipated costs. So in a well-run government, the government should only get involved if it helps, not if it's going to hold people back. So because you want to look out for the common good of all individuals. So a few characteristics of the United States economy are this. A market exists whenever buyers and sellers want to exchange goods and services. So you may not think about it that much, but you exchange goods all the time. Whenever you go to the store, something as simple as getting gas or going to the grocery store or buying clothes or whatever you really need, you exchange because you want to buy an item and you give them money, usually like cash or a credit card, sometimes a check, but usually cash or credit card. Now it'll be your exchange. So now the items you are taking out of the store are rightfully yours. Next point here is free enterprise. So markets are generally allowed to operate without undue interference from the government. Now this means that businesses can make their own decision on, really how much to pay their employees, as long as they pay at least a federal minimum wage, how to set up their stores, how many stores they want to have, what locations they like to go to, what sorts of people they need to run their store. So for the most part, there's not a whole lot of interference in how stores are structured, set up, and run. The next point here is prices are determined for the most part by supply and demand as buyers and sellers interact in that marketplace. So when we're talking about supply and demand, supply is how much you have of something. So there are, 100 gallons of milk in the grocery store, and the demand is how much people want. So over the course of a day, let's say a grocery store sells 75 gallons of milk. So supply does not exactly equal demand, but there is a good amount of demand there. So the grocery store always wants to, kind of stay ahead a little bit so that people have enough to buy things. So the next point here is going to be private property. So individuals and businesses have the right to own real and personal property as well. So when we're talking about real property, we're talking about like real estate. So homes, any kind of land that you would have to build a home or have a farm, or some people just have land because they plan for some future use. So that's what I mean by real and personal. Personal is like a car or anything else you would put in your house, furniture, computers, TVs, anything else you'd put inside. So as well as any means of production without undue interference from the government. So the government basically provides this structure to define and enforce such property rights to make sure you have what you need and no one's going to take it away from you without a cause, typically like if you committed some kind of crime or something like that. Next part here is a profit motive. So this consists of earnings after all expenses have been paid. So I think we talked about this last time, but profit is really what is left over after you pay for the total production cost of your good, or you provided your service. So for example, I think we used the oil example before. So what's another good example we can use here? I don't know. Let's say you buy anything in the store, like all those shoes that probably a lot of people buy. There's always sales on those. So if it costs $10 to produce those shoes, to pay for the labor and the shipping and materials and whatever else, and then they sell them for $50, then the store's hoping to make a $40 profit because that's after all expenses have been paid. And that's a lot of times why things like shoes are on sale. It's because there is such a large profit, what they call margin. So in the case of having $10 for the cost of producing the good versus $50 for the advertised price, a store could afford to put things on sale even though it would reduce their potential profit earnings. So our next point here is competition, and this is rivalry between producers of a similar good or service, like Samsung, Galaxy, and iPhone would be a good competitor, or Ford and Toyota, they would be another big competitor, or really anybody else. You can think of Adidas and Nike would be another one. So what this means for you, the consumer, is better quality goods and services at a lower price. So they're always going to be priced pretty similar as far as, if you're going to look for a pair of Adidas shoes versus Nike shoes. So competition is good for you. The less competition there is, the higher the price would be for a particular good or service. One thing that the government really keeps an eye on, they keep an eye on a lot of different businesses and individuals who operate businesses, but they also keep an eye on how much is available in the marketplace. For example, communications. So just imagine if only Verizon was the only company to provide internet, and there was no other company. There was no Comcast, there's no Xfinity, there's no other way to get it. Just imagine what would happen. Okay, you imagine, hopefully. So Verizon could charge, $300 a month for internet, and there would be nobody else to compete against them. So if you want to have internet, you would have to pay $300 a month, which is a lot of money, because typically you can get internet for probably around like $50 to $75, depending on what kind of plan you'd like to have per month. So Verizon could really raise the rates if they were the only company to provide internet service, which is not the case. So there is other competition out there. Next point here, consumer sovereignty. So consumers are going to determine through which purposes and goods will be produced. So the more people want something, the more it's going to be available. And depending on the store, the more stores there will probably be across the state or the country. So I don't know if you noticed, but there's been let me see, what's something that's kind of expanded for you guys? Well, consumer sovereignty, like with townhomes, it seems like there's been a lot of townhomes that have been built, especially in Loudoun County in the past decade. So obviously there's a big demand for people to purchase a townhouse. So there's going to be a lot of builders who want to build that, and that has to do a lot with consumer sovereignty. Last point here is that government involvement in the economy is limited. So in the United States, the government does have a significant amount of influence, but it also does not. So most decisions regarding the production of any kinds of goods or services are made in the private sector. Let's go to our next slide. So a little bit less than the last one, so this should go a lot faster. The next point here is buyers and sellers respond to price changes. So neither supply nor demand alone can set the price. When we're talking about setting price, we're talking about supply and demand, but there are also other factors out there. Supply and demand are two of the most important things you probably need to be aware of, especially to pass your SOL test. But that's not the only thing that can set the price. So price is really determined by the interaction of supply and demand, and business owners are always trying to figure out how to have supply and demand meet. So the price needs to be something that will attract buyers to buy it, but also be at a certain amount where the business will make profit. So price is the amount of money exchanged for a good or service. So everything has a price in the store. Just think about whatever store you want to go to. And that the price is the amount of money they would expect in return for you purchasing their good, or for a service, like you obviously getting ready to go to high school. After high school is college, so you're looking to go to a university. For the most part, education is a service. You're going to be learning a lot about things that may not exactly have a use right away, maybe a use in the future, or a use that you're going to need to apply for something else. So a lot of that would be a service. Although you can go to school and learn how to use particular goods, like if you're going to go to like auto mechanic school, or how to be an electrician or plumber, or I don't know, hairdresser, whatever else is out there. So the next part here is demand. Demand is the amount of the good or service that consumers are willing and able to buy at different prices during a time period. So demand is dependent on a lot of things, on like clothes. A lot of that depends on the weather. Stores always change their clothes inventory based on the season. Also, it depends on how busy people are. Like summertime is always a really big time for people who have a business on the beach, or hotels, or something like that, because there's a lot of people that have time off from school, or they take vacation time because the weather's nice out. So there's other variables that sometimes determine demand. So demand may also depend on the price. So if something is too expensive, people may not want to buy it. So the next point here is the law of demand. So consumers will buy more of a good or service at a lower price and less at higher prices. So the more affordable something is, the more people are going to want to buy it. However, you have to keep in mind quality, and some people are willing to pay more money for a better product because it will be a longer lasting product that will be a better investment in the long run. Next point here is higher prices for good or service provide incentives for buyers to purchase less of that good or service. So, sometimes people have a higher price because they want to attract a certain kind of person, or people with certain kinds of taste. So There may be different reasons why there may be a higher price. Or sometimes the price is just higher. Like, for example, gasoline fluctuates all the time. Sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's lower. In my lifetime, I've seen the gas be, over $3, close to $4 a gallon, and I've seen it as less as like, I don't know, I want to say like 80 cents. So it fluctuates a lot. Now, obviously, the higher price, the less people are going to buy, and on the inverse, the lower the prices are, the more there's going to be people who want to buy that. So on both ends, whether price is low or price is high, there are going to be incentives for people to either buy less or more of that good or service. Let's move on to the next point. So let's spend a little time talking about supply and equilibrium price. So supply is the amount of good or service that producers are willing and able to offer for sale at each possible price. Now, just remember, when a business is offering something for sale, they are simply allowing the public to buy the good. Then there's something that is on sale, and it's usually for like an incentive or discount rate. So supply does not necessarily depend on an incentive as much as it is or is not available in the market. The next one here is the law of supply. So producers will produce more when they can sell at a high price and produce less when they can sell at a low price. So a lot of that has to do with demand for the product. So supply and demand are related. The next one here. Higher prices for a good or service provide incentives for producers to make or sell more or good of a service. So obviously the higher price, you're going to have to think about how you're going to get the price down if that's hurting your profit, and then also how it's going to affect your overall supply. Equilibrium price. So equilibrium price is the point where supply and demand are going to meet. So looking at this graphic here on the left side, the bottom left side, we have our supply line, which is the pink line. We have our D line, which is the blue line, and that's demand. In the middle, there's an intersection point, and that intersection point is equilibrium. As a business, you want to have your price be as close as possible to the equilibrium point. It may not be possible to have it perfectly line up all the time, but you really want to try to go for that, because that way you will be able to provide your product to as many people as possible to earn a good profit. So as a good business planner, you want to always keep a close eye on the equilibrium point where supply, the pink line, and demand, the blue line, are going to meet. Next points here are everyone who wants to sell that price can sell, and everyone who wants to buy that price can buy, and that is the happy place of equilibrium. Moving on to the next points. There are three basic ways that businesses can organize and earn profits. Entrepreneurs play an important role in all three types of business organizations because people with good ideas, plans, and thoughts are going to be needed in order to drive business forward and keep it successful. So the three basic types of businessship are this. A proprietorship. This is a form of business organization with one owner who takes all the risks and all the profits. All right? So business ownership is one person who operates as one person in their business. They may hire other people, but they are the main person who, or the only person who makes decisions, and they most definitely are the only person that owns it, and that is a proprietorship. The next kind of business is a partnership. So this is a form of business with two or more owners who share the risks and the profit. So if you and your buddy want to open a business, you would be opening a partnership. If you and your buddy want to open a pizza shop around the corner, and you both want to own it, and you both want to share the profit, and you both realize you both own the risk, you just established a partnership. It's different from a proprietorship. Last one here, corporation. This is a form of business that is authorized to act as an legal entity, as an individual, regardless of the number of owners. So looking back at our checkpoints that we have completed, there's been a number of people confused between what a corporation is and what a proprietorship is. So important to remember this difference. A proprietorship is one person who owns the business, and they are the only person that owns the business, just one, only one. A corporation is a business that operates as a person, as one person. Although they may not be one person, they may be 10 people, it may be 100 people, it may be 1,000 people. There may be lots of people that are involved in the ownership of that business. However, they operate as one unit. So because they operate as one unit, they operate as a legal entity. They operate as one person, even though they are not one person. So again, proprietorship is one person who owns the whole business, and they operate as one person. A corporation is one or many people who own the business. However, they operate like or as a legal entity or as a person because they operate as a unit. So to finish this one off, for corporation owners, share the profits. So a lot of companies offer stocks like Apple, Samsung, Google, Amazon, Tesla, General Motors, Ford, lots of different places. You can share in the profit. However, you share in the loss as well. So if a business is doing well, you will make money with them. If it's not doing well, you will also share in losing money. So 3 different types of businesses. Let's go to the next slide. We're almost done. Let's talk a little bit about entrepreneurs. So this is a person who takes a risk to produce and sell goods and services and ensure it's a profit. So these are the people behind the business. They come up with all the big ideas. They make lots of big presentations to people to ask for money to develop their product. So they may establish a business according to any 3 types of organizational structures. So just to go back one slide, an entrepreneur could establish a business as a proprietorship, so it would just be them. An entrepreneur could establish a partnership with them and a buddy, so that would be 2 or more, or maybe 3 buddies, whatever they want to do. Or it may be a corporation, so it would be a large group of people, and that entrepreneur would lead a team or help to supervise a board or other large group of people for their business. So entrepreneurs increase competition by bringing new goods and services to market or delivering products in innovative ways. Think about how many different kinds of fast food restaurants there are. McDonald's, Burger King, KFC, Chick-fil-A, Wendy's, Arby's. I'm probably forgetting a few in there. But anyway, you get the idea. They're basically restaurants that are very similar in what they offer and are set up in the same type of business model. Business model, but they're really set up in the same type of restaurant model. You can either walk in and order your food and sit at some small tables, or you can drive your car through the drive-thru and keep going. So hence the fast food restaurant name. But they are all definitely in competition with each other since they offer the same good and service, really, because their good is obviously their food, whether it's a chicken sandwich or chicken nuggets or a burger and fries. And their service really is their speed, because they will get you in and out of the door faster than other restaurants. So they are often looking for other technological progresses to foster their progress, and also any other economic growth. So they're always looking to expand. Next point. Resources, goods, and services and money flow continuously through households, businesses, and markets in the United States economy. It's this graphic down here on the left. Household, government, businesses, they all kind of flow with each other. Flow. This is the circular flow. And this circular flow is how money moves around in America. So, for the most part, goods, services, and resources are all going to flow in one direction. So if you notice how this moves around, you're going to have a circular flow that moves back and forth. So, for example, in the individual, the household will work and they will make payments towards the business. The business gives goods and services to the government, and the government can provide services and income to the individual. So it keeps flowing around. And in order for America to work well, circular flow needs to be active, and it needs to be able to provide each of these three areas, household, businesses, and government, with the amount of money it needs to operate. So under circular flow, households own the resources used in production, they sell them, and use them to buy products. Businesses are going to buy resources. They're going to make products that are sold to individuals, businesses, and the governments. The profits that they earn, they acquire more resources to be able to produce more. So when households and businesses spend money, the income is used by households to purchase goods and services, to purchase resources. So your parents work at a job, whatever job that is. They earn money from their business. So that business obviously gives you all what you need, because your parents use it to have a roof over your head, a car to drive, food to eat, clothes to wear, and anything else you may need, health insurance, whatever else you need. So that's something that business would provide. Now, the work that your parents may do may directly involve working for the government, whether it's on the federal or the state or the local, or maybe they work for a school or something. So they're going to provide some kind of service to the community, and then in turn, the community or the government they're working for, or the project they're working on, will in turn help out the people who live in your community, and obviously help your own household. So it all flows around. Governments use tax revenue from households and businesses to provide public goods and services. So I'm pretty sure the government takes in about $3 trillion, yes, $1 trillion a year through tax revenue, and uses that to finance all of its programs and departments and agencies and all the different goods and services it provides for Americans. So the only problem we have with our circular flow right now in our country is that we're spending more than we take in. So we definitely have to work on that. And our Democrats and Republicans there in the legislative branch are definitely thinking of ways to try to help make that better, along with our executive branch led by our president. So the next point here, financial institutions help facilitate exchange of money. So this is a bank. Private financial institution is a bank. So these include banks and credit unions. There's not a whole lot of credit unions. There may be some. Maybe you've heard of like Navy Federal Credit Union or Apple Credit Union. But for the most part, they are going to be exclusive, and they only allow certain types of people with certain types of jobs to be a member. They receive deposits and make loans. They also encourage saving and investing by paying interest on deposits. So they're really going to allow people to maximize the use of their money and to buy what they need. They help provide financial capital to businesses who start or grow a business, so like loans or other ways to help out. Last couple points here. Virginia, United States pursue international trade in order to increase wealth. So in the global economy, worldwide markets are what we're interested in. And in the worldwide markets, we have the buying and selling of goods and services by individuals, nations, and businesses. They're going to take place. So here in Virginia, we have a lot of government contractors that deal with international clients. So that would be an example of how Virginia would be connected with other foreign countries and markets. So reasons that states and nations are going to trade to obtain goods and services they cannot produce by themselves. So that's kind of solving the problem of scarcity. To buy goods and services for lower cost. That's why a lot of things that we use or wear are made in China, because it is less for a business to make it over there in China than it is to make it over here in America. To sell goods and services to other countries. So sometimes it's good to build a relationship and just to trade. Also, some countries may need what we have, as the United States, and other countries may need something from the United States that they want to buy. So it's beneficial for both parties. Also, to create jobs. So having more work for people is always a good thing, because there are definitely individuals out there who are either underemployed, so they're working but they're not making enough, or they are unemployed and they don't have a job. Next point here, Virginia, United States specialize in the production of certain goods and services, which promotes efficiency and growth. So we all have things we're good at, or things that are particular to us that we have, and we like to share those with other countries in exchange for money to help us grow. So innovations in technology, like the internet, like email, or tracking packages and other things, are going to contribute to the global flow of information, capital goods, and services. Last point here is the use of such technology also lowers the cost of production. So having machines do work typically means that you'll have less people to employ to do the work. And since labor is usually one of the more expensive things that you'll have to pay for when you're providing a good or service, the less labor you have to pay for, the more affordable your product will be. So, we're just about done. A few questions for you, and we will be finishing up. So, name and explain 3 characteristics of the United States economy. So, the United States economy has aspects of supply and demand. It is also a mixed economy that is primarily free market, but still classified as mixed. People have the opportunity to own their own property and their own businesses, and they will also have to pay taxes to the government in exchange for some services the government provides to them. So let's move on to the next question. Briefly explain the relationship between supply and demand. So when you are looking at supply and demand, you're trying to reach the supply and demand curve right here. You're trying to reach that equilibrium point, that intersection point between supply and demand, because in that equilibrium point, the people who want to buy your product really like the price that it's at, and you as a producer will be able to know how much to make, so you won't have waste or leftover or something called surplus. What is equilibrium price? Kind of mentioned it already, but basically that's where supply equals demand, and that price will reflect once you calculate all your data. So it's really the optimal price for the business, because then they won't have to produce more goods than what is needed to produce, because they will know what the demand is. 3 possible ways businesses and owners can earn profit. You have your 3 kind of businesses. You have your proprietorship, which is one person who makes all the risks and also will earn all the profit, and they are simply one person only. Another way would be a partnership. So a partnership is where you have 2 or more people who would share the risk and share the profit. The last one is a corporation. So that is typically a group of people, or one person leading a group of people to manage a business, and they will all share in the risk and the profit. They will also share in the ownership. So even though there's many people a part of this, they operate as a unit, so they operate as a legal entity, and since they do, they operate as a person. Even though they are not one person, they are many. So those are your 3 different types of businesses. Circular flow works in American business through this way. Households are going to work together with businesses and the government, and in this way they will all provide goods and services for each other. The household buys items from a business. The business pays taxes and collects taxes and gives it to the government. The government provides goods and services to individuals, and the cycle continues. So the success of this business cycle will help determine how successful economic developments and really business in America works. So what are financial institutions known as, and what do they provide citizens? Financial institutions are banks. and they provide things like loans, credit cards, and banking services for people. A place to put their money, keep it safe, and to be able to pay their bills. Also, last question here, why do nations trade with each other and what assists in the trading? So nations trade with each other to build relationships, to obtain goods and services they may not already have, and also to buy things at a better price. So what assists in the trading is technology. Technology helps to move things along faster, more efficiently, and to provide better communication between the buyer and the seller. So there you go. That's about it for today. If you missed any portion of this or you just want to go back, feel free to go back in the video and rewatch what you may have missed or weren't exactly sure on. You can also ask me a question if you like to. Since we're all done with this, please make sure you save your notes. This is the end of our SFO review, so make sure you got everything all saved and taken care of neatly. And go back to Google Classroom, go back to the agenda, and you can move on to the next agenda item. Thank you for watching, and look forward to having a great rest of the fourth quarter with you. Thanks.